Okay. Looks like I'm live now. Yesterday, kind of lurking and making a few comments on Darren T's live stream, and indicated that maybe I'd be going live yesterday in the afternoon, and other things came up and I wound up not doing that. So therefore here we are. Well, actually yesterday was a pretty productive day. This was the last shot that was shown on the live stream. This shot I was able to get quite a good bit of leverage on. Let's see, I'm going to check the line of dialogue here. Yeah, so he tells her that she's been given a tremendous gift. Now he's a little innocent in that he truly sees it that way. And she's like, gift? I don't know if you noticed, Your Majesty, but it's not as if I really had a choice. Well, I mean, of course not. I mean, why would you? You're a girl. Oh, yes. Yes, he actually says that. And then here, so what do we have today? Well, this line, I would say we certainly can reuse this shot. Probably crop it in a bit. We could do that at the editing stage, or do it in Tahoma. So this shot, I don't think I'm going to reuse. This is actually, I went ahead and redrew her. I just wanted to get a little different angle. And then here, it's a tight close-up where she's really turning her head towards him. So I'll be getting this done today, where we'll be doing the ink and paint. And maybe hand animating the eye expressions, because she's definitely going to be giving him a scowl. And after that shot, yeah, there's Mel out in the back kind of choking on what he's hearing the prince say to her, because he doesn't know TNR too well, but he knows enough to know that that's not going to go over too well. This whole, gee, you're just a girl kind of thing. And indeed, why should it go over well? Of course it shouldn't. So, anyway, so that's what I'm going to do, actually, is a little bit of recap on some of the techniques I employed in the shot that I did yesterday that was created from scratch, just to recap kind of how I've been working in Tahoma. And I've been toying around with somewhat loosening my dependence on Krita. And the reasons why I haven't might seem kind of silly to some people. For example, in Krita, it's very easy to stack layers of things up and very quickly add effects, so that what I bring into Tahoma normally by cutting and pasting is just literally the whole character completely drawn and inked, colored, shadows, the whole deal. So I've been looking for a way in Tahoma. Hey, Razlad. It's better for the eyes if the background for sketches is gray and not pure white. I will tell you that I'm not sure what you mean by sketches. I think you just mean for the... Let me see here. For shadows, it looks better to use any color but black in multiply mode. I mean, yes or no. I mean, the optimal answer for shadows, actually, which I don't usually use the optimum, but what I found, again, working in Krita, because it's fast to do so, is actually to, if you really wanted to dial it in, I'd probably actually have two identical shadow layers, one of which is in multiply mode and one of which is in overlay mode. So the overlay mode would actually pump the saturation of the underlying color and work together with the multiply mode, I think, towards the goal that you're expressing, which is that you'd see a little bit more of the color coming through, and it wouldn't be as muted as what you're getting with pure multiply mode. Now, to be completely accurate, on like this shadow, these shadows are pure multiply mode. These shadows are actually just, you'd say, in normal mode. Probably, in a perfect world, you would probably let a little bit more of the underlying color punch up a bit in shadows. So, like so many things, it is all opinion, but I will say too that when I've kind of been watching Fairy Tale here and there, and you know, I would say this is actually a Fairy Tale movie, but I would say that these are pretty harsh shadows. Let's just jump forward to something here and see what we can find that maybe gives us a, just jumping around here. Yeah, this is better. This is kind of bright, and okay, so here we go. Yeah, I mean, I would say this has probably got a little bit more of the, just a tiny bit of the underlying colors saturation being allowed to kind of bleed through. So, anyway, on balance, I tend to agree with you. In practice, normally I don't nitpick it quite that much as far as the coloring on shadows. I think for most people, the more important consideration is just how they're you're using your ink and paint layer as a mask so that you can color outside the lines, and it just makes it easier to do shadows that are flanking the edges of the character, you know. So one of the things that I did yesterday on this particular shot was that I actually set the opacity of the level to 21%. And in Tahoma, you have a, well, it's actually in your scene settings. You have the option to enable the column color filter and transparency in the rendering step. So I went ahead and did that yesterday, and it wound up looking pretty much the same as other shots I've done. So I was like, okay. Yeah, and to your point, usually with the whites of the eyes, you're talking, they're not white. They're like almost never white. They're usually, you know, what is this? This is a value. You know, I usually go to white and then roll the value back. So in this case, it's 82%. It depends on the lighting too in the situation, just kind of making everything balance. But probably the more important takeaway as far as the workflow goes is what I've been doing is, let me think about this for a second, how I want to explain this. For a limited animation show, you tend to want to sort of work out. So your fundamental first step would be just the drawing. Does the drawing and the attitude that's conveyed in the drawing and the rendering of it, is that picture, with there's no animation at all, is that doing a pretty good job of capturing the story and emotional content required for that shot? So that's, for me, step one, is get that right. If the drawing sucks, everything else doesn't work. King of High School, I'll check it out. I wonder if it's on Tubi. I'll bet you it's not. I tend to use Tubi a lot lately. I've actually gotten rid of Netflix quite some time ago. Yeah, it doesn't look like that one's on Tubi. I didn't think it would be, but I'll have to I'll Google that right now. And you never know, when people recommend an anime, you never really know quite what they're, you know, people like different things for different reasons. I inadvertently bumped on the live action version. But anyway, back to work. It's Crunchyroll original. Okay. Okay, I do have a link to Crunchyroll here on my browser, so I'll check it out. Thanks for your patience, friends. And I am actually on Crunchyroll right now, looking for King of... Oh, ran out of time. unfortunately, I'm looking. I did a quick search of just King, and there's a bunch of titles, obviously, but King of High School didn't come up. So I'll look for it later, though. Thanks for the tip. Oh, got it. Okay, that I think I saw. Okay, thank you. Hey, everybody glitches once in a while. So, God of High School. There it is. I'm going to check it out because I'm kind of curious. So now, what do you like about it? Is it basically the story, characters, yada, yada, yada? Or is it something about the art aspect of it or the animation, yada, yada, yada? I'm just skipping through an episode right now just to kind of see what it is you're talking about. Okay, they're definitely using... We've talked a little bit in recent live streams about the glow and bloom effect that seems to be so prevalent among some anime in recent years. And I'm definitely seeing a lot of that. In fact, I would venture to say every single frame of this show has a glow/bloom effect slapped on top of it. Interesting. We'll leave it at that for the moment. Let me jump back here so I can see what's going on. Straightforward, fighting without breaks, and it's crazy. Okay, cool. So, it's actually not a horrible idea to consider that type of an effect. That's what we used here. You know, there's like a bloom effect. And so I'm going to go back here and try something. I'm going to go ahead and save my scene. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the prior scene with the prints. So that would be this shot right here. Because it's already got this bloom algorithm. And it would be interesting to smack it on top of her. And I think it might punch up the production value. In her case, we could also put a body highlight effect here. And then test the bloom situation and see how it works. Okay. So let's do that. I think that'll be all kinds of fun, and it might make the overall image quality just a little bit better. So this is shot number 520 we need to pull up here. Boom, boom, boom. There it is. And if I hit F3, let me go to the effects, and there's the effect. So the effect is curves, blur, and add. So I am going to actually grab these together and make a macro effect. Now, the question I have now is, will that then be available in the other scene? I have absolutely no idea. So I'll go ahead and save all, reopen the last shot, and let's see if it does. Great, and if not, it's pretty easy to reproduce it. So what we're doing is... and actually, getting back to the point of working out, the point was that what I'm finding myself doing is bake the character down in a sub scene with its shadows, and then any animation that needs to be done there, which would be typically lip sync, eye blinks, you know, the basic character communication, dialogue kind of stuff, and then one level up from there. Go ahead and use the plastic tool for secondary animation, you know, like that little turn of the head, that sort of stuff. That seems to be working pretty well. So there's sort of a division of labor between the animation tools. Now this is what we would want to apply that glow to. So I'm going to hit F3, and let's see if we can take column tool 2 and add the macro effect. I've never done this. I've never used a macro effect, so I assume there really is not an option to... I wonder what would be paste insert. I don't know. So I'm going to look here. Toggle mode icons. New output. Effects. New effects. Okay, if we do it this way, maybe there's a... So if anybody's out there who knows, what is the point of saving a set of nodes as a macro if you can't get back to the macro to reuse it? That would be the question. Okay, so to do what we're trying to do, let's go ahead and... I'm feeling a little spanky. Why don't we go ahead and try using the new bloom effect again and see how it goes. I'm not super duper optimistic, but we'll give it a crack. So this is the effect I'm seeing all over the place on God of High School, but it's obviously not that over the top. Okay, so now one interesting thing about the bloom effect is that it does allow you to dynamically adjust things with a widget. It does not appear that moving this around does much at all, and I'm not seeing a commensurate change here in the settings. So basically all this is doing for me is changing the size of the glow. That's interesting. Yeah, that's actually kind of bad because you can see that it's cropping at the top. I think my best option here is to reinsert it so we get a clean start. So light effects bloom. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's still bleeding off. So anyway, let's see what we can do with this. If the gain is 0, let's just see what that does. When I fiddled with this the other day, it was my basic conclusion that the effect was not that useful because it was so hard to control. But we'll see. Okay, so I type in 0 and I hit enter and it jumps back to 2. So there's kind of a strike against it as well. That's kind of a bit ridiculous. Okay, and as you can see, changing the gain seems to have no effect. So if I turn the effect off and then turn it back on, it doesn't seem to have any effect still. So we crank it all the way down. So this is kind of what I saw the other day. The new and exciting and amazing, and you can't believe how cool it is. Bloom effect seems to work pretty poorly. Let's crank the gamma way up. Okay, so now that's getting, okay, that's definitely getting more in the range of what might be useful, but the problem is our gain is as low as possible and it's still too strong. So that's the problem I kind of observed the other day, is my sense was that this is not very controllable. But let's crank the size way down. Now we're getting a little closer. All right. Frankly, for me, I'm not quite thrilled with it. So I'm going to, we'll keep this connection around because why not? We can compare it. Okay, so what I did, if we pipe this back into our scene and we want to get that real modern kind of bloom effect, then the way I would do it is I would do adjust levels, and I'm still going to pipe this through here. Actually, I guess what I really meant to do was the input. That's where I would, yeah, that's where I'm going to get the contrast. Okay. So I'm really going to pump the contrast. Okay. Now this is very interesting in terms of being controllable, because for a situation like this, it's kind of likely that you would want to happen to be capitalizing on some of the colors that are not necessarily the brightest. In other words, I don't necessarily want a lot of glow around her face. I kind of want the bloom out here. But presumably that's going to be comped on top anyway, so it doesn't matter that much. Let's go to a blur. Let's take the blur 45. We'll go with that for the moment. And then we're just going to comp this probably both over and under. Okay. So insert effects. This would be layer blending. Yes, we'll do an add. Okay, so then if we run this to there anyway, I gotta sneak this over here. Sneak that over there. Sneak this over here so I can see what the heck I'm doing. Boop. Boop. Okay. Source 1, source 2. Let's get rid of this. Okay, and then obviously that underscores a bit of a problem in that we really need to be taking the output as modified by the plastic tool.
So that makes it kind of an interesting situation.
That further complicates what we're trying to do, because what it means is we really want to make this effect probably affecting the entire scene's output. I may be chasing a rabbit here that I don't necessarily want to chase, but kind of interesting. Column 2 is not modified by the plastic tool, but what's a little strange here is that, let's see if we go back here. Okay, there's the plastic tool that's controlling it. I have to confess, I've actually never bumped into this situation before, where you've got this difference between, you've got the output from the plastic tool, but here in the effects, you don't really have, morning Maria, morning Golden Slime. Okay, Golden Slime's comment about the bloom effect. So far, I haven't been able to find it usable at all. In this particular shot, we have a little bit of a problem, because obviously I'm bumping into a disconnect between the output from the plastic tool, or from the level as modified by the plastic tool, versus the output that incorporates the plastic tool. And frankly, I'm not seeing how I go ahead and add an effect on top of what these two do working together while excluding the background. That's the basic problem I'm bumping into right now. And my solution for the moment is going to be to ignore the problem, frankly, because I want to kind of get moving on with the next shot, and I can come back to this. In a sense, this underscores, once again, one of the reasons why I use Krita. But I have to say something here, too. This narrowed her a little bit. I felt like I made her too wide. And it looks to me like the narrowing, so I better step back here half a second here, and let me see if I can undo. Yeah, okay, so we'll undo that. So actually, I don't think I have a problem. I thought I did, but I don't. Yeah, so the problem's here. And then if I want to use the Animate tool to resize the horizontal, well, it looks like I've already got it set. 95. So actually, yeah, there was just an erroneous key in there. So that means, there we go. Everything's working again. Okay, cool. So this output does incorporate the plastic tool. I was just being a silly goose. Okay, so basically, pump the contrast, blur it out, and then use additive mode to comp it over top of your character. And then probably in most cases what you'd additionally then want to do is a straight over effect, where you're putting the whole glowing effect over top of your actual character. And now I'm going to go through here and start tweaking a few things. 100%? I think not. Let's go back to 50. Okay, now we're getting in the range of the what we were seeing there in God of High School. This is basically, I have to say, from what I saw briefly, and by the way, thanks again for the tip. Good morning, Kronos. Welcome to the party. I would say that this type of effect, about like that, was present all over the place on that show. Now, I'm actually looking back at the show on Crunchyroll to see the effect is more subtle. Okay, let's say, gosh, heck, I'm going to say, let's add 20%. Yes, I would say, broadly speaking, that the entire show of God of High School appears to me to have a bloom over top of it, like the whole show, everything, at least all the characters. If I look real closely, it's probably not affecting the backgrounds as much, but yeah, that's too much. Something like that. looks like it's literally on the whole show. Now, in this case, I think this is actually a good idea. When we go back here, we got this glow on the prints, and frankly, she's a little flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the body highlight to catch a little bit of light here on the right, and then I'm going to leave the glow on there and re-render it, and I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing. Now, when I just clicked away from it and back, I must say it is a little bit strong. Looks a little bit strong. So save my work. So yeah, the roll your own bloom, the way I do it, high contrast, blur it out, and then use additive mode to blend it. And then in this case, I'm actually then comping that over the unaffected version of it as well. Pretty simple algorithm, pretty easy to do. And the cool thing is it's real controllable. Everything about it is quite controllable. So I'm going to pump that down to 15. And now we can always compare like this. You just go boop. See that? So at any time you can kind of compare what it looks like with the effect on and off. So that feels pretty good. All right, so the only thing missing here is probably the body highlight should, I think, ignore the glow. I think the glow should be laid over top of it. So I'm going to go to light, body highlight. And let's see what we get. Interesting. Interesting. Why are we not seeing it? Let's go right into our scene and kill this connection. Okay, there it is. So I'm not sure why we weren't seeing that a moment ago. Let's go ahead and get this dialed in, and then we'll figure out what the problem is. So transparency, I think, basically X and Y moves it X, Y. That's pretty much the size of it. So if I go from X equals 22, which I'm pretty sure that's moving it to the left, actually. Let me see. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to put X at 50. Y is fine. And then I want to smack down the transparency. I'm sorry, I want to smack up the transparency. It's the opacity I want to turn down. Something like that, just so I get that little bit of a nice gradient there. And if I blur it just a little bit more, yeah, it softens it up a bit. I think that's going to look good. So now what I'm going to do is, rather than fuss over it too much, I'm going to try sticking this in here, like so. And now let's see what this looks like without the character blended underneath. Not too bad, not too bad. So the question is, does this actually help at all? Not much. So I would say we don't even need the over effect. We can just come out of the additive. Well, hold it. Why does, this is very strange. Why does the body highlighting effect disappear? It's not even connected here. So there's a little bit of weirdness in the signal pipeline that doesn't quite make sense to me. But that's okay. It looks good. So we'll go with that for the moment. All right. Let me go back here and look at my chat. Dumb question. Can you animate the settings of your bloom so that the lighting can change over time? Yeah, what you want to look at, Maria, is almost any of these effects. This little diamond right there is the same as the diamond everywhere in the program. This invokes animation, sets an animation key. It's a little harder to control. I mean, if you really want to control it, you'd probably want to pull up your function editor, you know, go through here in the list of effects and find the curve. Looks like it's pretty easy to find here. And then so you could actually create a tween or just add nodes on the curve over time to control how it animates. But yeah, most of the effects in OpenToonz and Tahoma2d are animatable. It's just, in a perfect world, what happens is you set the initial value, you go forward in time, set the other value, and you kind of hope it does a good job of guessing, you know, what that you guessed right. Now, The caveat is I'm pretty sure that the way it's going to interpolate between those keyframes, think about it. With an effect, you probably want a continuous effect over time. So if you're like me, where you like to really control your tweens, and so you have your animation set to constant interpolation, which means there is no tweening going on, you might want to check that and switch it to one of your favorite easing algorithms, or I tend to actually go with linear, and again add extra keyframes to sort of dial in my own tweening. So, but that's me, Mr. Control Freak. So, all right, so Control Shift R. I'm re-rendering the shot now. Boom, 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 boom. You can see that to these other shots, I think for the moment I'm not going to do that. Whoops. I think for the moment I'm going to leave the wide shots as they are, and just allow the close shot to be punched up like that. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay. So let me see here. Yeah, there she's narrowed more. So I actually think I'm going to make one little minor change. I'm hitting the A key, and up here, you notice my horizontal and my vertical are not locked. And I'm going to actually switch this. I'm just guessing here, but I'm going to guess 90. And I'm just going to be bold and render this and just see how it flows through the show. I just feel like I made her a little too wide when I drew her. And now if it immediately jumps out at me as feeling too... Nope, that's about right. I think I got it right. I'm going to go with it. I like it. Okay, cool. So that would be possible in Blender. Oh yeah, there's nothing you can do Raslad in Tahoma that you couldn't also do in Blender. Definitely. But my opinion would be, for most situations, I prefer the schematic in Tahoma2d and OpenToonz over the node editing in Blender, mainly because it's more performant. The real-time playback and the rendering are quite a lot better by comparison to when you do a bunch of stuff with nodes in Blender. So, but yeah, I'm with you. Okay, now what we got to do is this shot. So from scratch and redraw her as we see here. So I'll be getting to that shortly. But for this shot, I'm going to be able to pull up 520 and go ahead and reuse it. So let's rock and roll. So open a recent scene file, 520. Boy, I like that bloom effect. I think that came out quite nicely. Okay, so again, this is what I was talking about as far as working out and building up and using nested scenes or X sheets, however you want to look at it, depending on if you're an OpenToonz or a Tahoma person. So at the lowest level, so you've got an X sheet that's then collapsed, feeds into another X sheet, feeds into another X sheet. Got it? Okay, thanks, Razlad. Salt and Light will be on Netflix. Golden Slime, the likelihood of Salt and Light being on Netflix is, I assume that's, you put NRT Flix, I assume you meant Netflix. Okay, you did, you corrected it there. The odds of that are very, very, very low. It'll be on some much higher traffic. I would expect it to be, I should say. I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I would expect that it will be on some much higher traffic YouTube channels associated with my distributor, and then all the platforms that are like advertising supported, like Tubi and Pluto TV and stuff like that. Netflix, I tell you, Netflix is a tough nut to crack, and I expect that I would not even be able to get a meeting with Netflix until I had gotten some real traction with, say, with this show, for example, to where the popularity of it sort of popped above that sort of attention threshold, to where Netflix would say, you know, let's take a look at what these people are doing, meaning actually me, and maybe talk about what we might do together. You know, it can happen, but everybody I've talked to in the last really 5 years in the distribution sector agrees that just getting a meeting with Netflix to pitch an idea is enormously difficult. Because everybody wants it. You know, everybody wants to work with Netflix. For good reason. Anyway, so what we're doing is we're saying, here's the prints, ink and paint, here's the shadows, anything that's going to be animated with standard frame-by-frame animation. Typically, you're talking about blinking the eyes, you're talking about, you know, speech, the mouth. Typically, those guys are going to go on separate, you know, levels just so you can animate them separately. So that's the idea here. So with the eyes, I've made a decision that always has a trade-off, which is that the eyebrows and the eyes and the pupils are all baked together in a single layer. Sometimes that's the right choice. I would say more often it's the wrong choice. But in this case, that's the way I've done it. And so what we have over the course of several shots is an increasingly longer and longer level strip here as I add other drawings to incorporate expressions that I haven't drawn yet, you know. And as long as I add them to the end of the list, as opposed to like inserting one here in the middle, adding new drawings doesn't break the earlier shots that are using this same level strip. So I hope that makes sense. Okay. So now that's the bottommost level. Now that's turned into a sub-X sheet or a sub-scene, and then that sub-scene is combined at a higher level with the plastic tool. So you've got all this animation, but then you say, hey, I want to add this layer of secondary animation over top of it. That's what the plastic tool does. And then this is, in fact, a sub-X sheet as well that's then layered over my background. So if I was going to add some effects like that bloom, I would probably do it at the top level. And in fact, in this shot, we have exactly that going on. I wish I knew how to take the macro effect. I guess the macro effect, I gather that it's nothing more than an organizational tool to take a bunch of nodes and pack them into one box so that you don't have to look at as many nodes. Because at least so far, I'm not seeing how you would take that macro and use it in another scene, because it doesn't like show up in the menu or anything. Tom doing art. Hey Tom, how you doing? Good to see you. All right, so for this shot, we need to go down, oopsie poo, I need to grab this column, and I need to go down 2 levels to the bottom level, and we need to look at the lip sync and see how we might modify settings. Change this as well to 522. Don't need to save everything. Okay, so now we're all ready to go ahead and change the animation. And another point I would mention is that in this case, I did want to push in a little bit on the prints. So probably what I'm going to do is just at the topmost level, let's just scale him up a bit. I like that. Let me look at my guides here to see about my rule of thirds. Position. Let's kill this so we can see what we're doing. Whoops. So I suppose ideally his eye would be there. So I'm going to pop up the widget by hitting all, so I have control of all the parameters. I'm actually going to center him right around his eye so that I can then scale up and it's going to scale around his eye. Okay, and in this case, I'm going to actually do this. I don't usually do this in Tahoma. I usually, if I'm going to scale it to do like a smash zoom or something, I typically do that right in my editor. But in this case, I think I'd like to maybe try the sort of the Hitchcock thing. So again, I'm going to hit the Animate tool here, A. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to scale this up slightly, specifically so that I can then scale it down slightly. So that, and I got a mistake. Sorry guys, I made a mistake. My mistake is I really need to change my interpolation back to linear for something like this. So it's a little clunky, but there you go. Life keeps on going. So now I'm going to take this, and we're going to see if Yep, that interpolated properly. So by the way, this is an improvement of Tahoma2d over OpenToonz as far as I can remember, which is, in versions of OpenToonz that I've used, if you set a key with the interpolation set a certain way, you're kind of screwed at that point. You could change the interpolation like I just did from constant to linear. Doesn't matter. For that column, it's going to be whatever you started with. With Tahoma, that's been rectified. So what I'm going to do is actually smack that up a little bit so that, again, I can smack it down. So with Tahoma, it's going to actually respect the change in the interpolation style. So I don't know if the Hitchcock effect is necessarily the right idea for this shot, but it's not going to hurt. We definitely want to have a little bit of punctuation there at the beginning of the shot. So now the problem is he's moving too soon. Everything's happening too soon. So let's go down one level. I would say I kind of like that, actually. His line again is, well, oh, he says, I'm going to run this in reverse. Okay, let me go down one level again. So now this is where we need to animate. I think he ends the previous shot here. And so I'm just thinking, his line is, well, of course not. I mean, why would you? You're a girl. Oh, Vespar, you crazy boy. You're so asking for trouble. I see you do scaling instead of the Z-axis on the Animate tool. Is there a reason for that choice? Yeah, it's pretty much just a matter of control. Usually scaling, if you're dealing with a smash zoom or something like that, typically scaling is just a faster way to accomplish the same thing. So the question would be, really, well, yeah, Dave, but this is the one case where that's really kind of a bad idea, because arguably if you're going for the Hitchcock effect, it would make more sense to actually do this effect by animating the camera in Z space. And Tom is correct. In this case, it probably would make more sense, because, but the truth of the matter is, to get the Hitchcock effect, because of that change in perspective between the foreground and the background is so extreme, that you would actually have to not only animate the movement of the camera on the Z-axis, but you'd also have to animate the lens length so it widens out. And this is not exactly the Hitchcock effect, because if you're doing the Hitchcock effect, what's supposed to happen actually is that the character would stay the same size. The camera lens or the zoom level would change, and that would cause the background to flatten out, so that as you're dollying the camera in while zooming out, you get the Hitchcock effect. Because what it does is it changes the angle of that your lens is seeing in essence by changing the zoom level. Okay, so my point would be, you're going to sit and fiddle around for a half hour getting that to look right, whereas in this case, to just like animate the two levels is instantly gets me to where I want it to be. So why am I going to dick around with, you know, animating my camera and changing the lens length and all this sort of stuff? I don't even know if you can change the lens length. I think what you can do is scale the camera, and that gives you essentially the same effect, I think. So there's that. Okay, so in this case, I feel like the timing of the plastic tool animation actually feels about right. If we go up one level and look at it, let's see. Yeah, as far as when he turns his head, I feel like we're on track. What would not necessarily be satisfactory is everything that's happening at the bottom level. He's not actually changing to the right expressions at the right times, yada, 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 yada. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is look at where he started. And actually, I'm going to turn his mouth off, because my presumption is I'm going to have to build up the lip sync from scratch anyway, so why be distracted by it? Okay, the eyes are going to be the key thing here, because frankly that's the only thing that actually is animated in this shot, because everything else about his characterization and his emotion, his movement, whatever, is coming from the plastic tool. You know, and it's pretty simple. It's the cock of the head, right? It works. Okay, so when we ended the last shot, we were on shot number 7. So here we're on shot number 1. I'm going to go ahead and hit WWWWW and grab 7, and now what I'm going to do, what I have to do, I don't have to get the timing right. I just got to get the sequence right. Okay, so the sequence is what would happen in this guy's expression that would follow along with the dialogue that we have to deal with. And it is actually kind of complicated. He says, well, of course not. I mean, why would you? You're a girl. Okay, so there's a lot happening there. We are going to simplify it. There's no question about that. But we do want to kind of get the basic sequence. So what are the beats? Okay, what are the emotional beats of that sequence? Well, of course not. So there's a bit of surprise. Of course not. Okay, that works. And he says, I mean, why would you? Okay, the eye blink is not helping. So I think from here we'll just delete. So now we're going to build it up going forward. We're essentially doing eyeball animation, if you will, as straight ahead animation. Just trying to figure out how to make the beats feel right. And if we bump into something that we can't express with the set of expressions we have, we'll just draw some new ones. So again, timing here doesn't matter at all. We'll just get the sequence right and then massage the timing, and then go back and see how we can use the plastic tool and maybe a little bit of a shift in his body weight to drive it home. Okay, so all right, and now here I'm on my other screen. I'm actually just putting the script off to the side so I can kind of keep one eye on the chat while being able to reference my script. So he says, well, of course not. I mean, why would you? Okay, so would seems to me there'd be a little bit of almost a scowly, a snarky thing. Now potentially the shift from this, okay, left eye is up, left eye is down. It could be that the shift from this to this would kind of do the trick, but let's find out. So I'm going to just get rid of these frames so that we're working in a more manageable time frame here. Natron is a tool made for composition. Razlad, I will say, here's the deal, guys. I'll tell you the deal on Natron. Number one, it's portable. It's pretty performant. It's really powerful in terms of, color correction tools. I think, motion tracking is really strong. Whether it's dramatically better than, let's say you've got Blender in your toolkit, you've got Tahoma in your toolkit, is it that much better? Maybe. The big problem with Natron is that if you go to their documentation website, you'll find that there's a really good encyclopedic outline, like a book, of every capability of the program, and 90% of the pages are empty. 90% of the pages say coming soon or whatever. And hence, as attractive and cool as Natron is, I don't personally know one single person that actually uses it for everyday work. So, but yeah, Natron is a super cool, it's got a lot of promise, but remember, what is Natron? Natron's a piece of software, I think pretty much programmed by one guy, I think a French guy, and I don't think that necessarily building a big community around it is his goal. I think it's kind of like, this is my tool that I use, and you know, there's a few people that I know use it, and if you want to use it, great, but don't expect me to bend over backward holding your hand to learning it, right? So, but I've used Natron. I had it. I don't think it's on my system right now, but it's been off and on quite a few times in the last few years, couple of years. So he says, of course not. Why would you? I mean, boom. I think I'm going to put that in the middle. Let me see what this does. Okay, if he smiled, I think we're going to be able to do a lot with his mouth on this shot. I'm going to take a little chance here, and I think that's going to do the trick. Okay, I'm going to get rid of all these mouth shapes. I don't want to be confused and clouded by trying to make what was in the old shot work. Imma GTG, I have no idea what that means. Imma GTG, what does that mean, Razlad? But, you know, in principle, I love Natron. I love the fact that it's portable. It's clearly tightly coded. I mean, the guy that wrote it is clearly a very capable programmer. Check it out, because, you know, if you find that you like it or use it, then maybe you can help us all, you know, benefit from your experience. Okay, so now we got to look at the timing. All right, let's get the timing on this eye stuff right first. I'm going to leave that as is. He says, well, of course not. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to snap this way down so I can get the timing here. Okay, something like this. Okay, so he's going to say, okay, so this is going to want to extend about down to here. Let me do that one more time. I'm a got to go. That's what that means? I've never seen that one. That just shows how out of touch I am. I'm old. I'm old. I'm not dialed into the latest you know, memes and acronyms and whatever else we call them. Well, of course. Okay, this I'm feeling like maybe just a little bit longer. Well, of course not. Okay. Why would you? Okay. Risky behavior. One more time. I'm kind of trying to memorize the dialogue so I don't have to keep looking up at it, because the problem is I can't read it while watching the animation. Well, of course not. I mean, why would you? You're a girl. Okay. Yeah, because he just... I was thinking there was another phrase in there. Well, of course not. Why would... Boom. Okay, yeah. This is too long, so we're going to grab this down to here and delete. So we'll come down to around 60, and now we need to deal with lip sync. Boom. And okay, so kind of feeling like that's probably what we want there. Oh yeah, so he says of course not. So Okay, so this is going to actually have to come a little quicker. And this is the wrong one. This probably should be 2. So we'll go on 2s. And then my suspicion, Control C, Control V. Okay, that probably gets us pretty close on the first thing, which is just, well, of course not. Well, of course not. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. Okay. Whoops. So we'll smack this down. Okay, actually here we have a problem. This is where he really needs to morph into a smile. So I'm going to just go ahead and hit the old B key. Oh, it's a little crooked. And then here, again, reframe this on 2s, copy C, Control C, Control V. Probably extend that 1 extra frame, and then back to the smile. This little sloppy grin. So this not very sharp. I'm gonna look in here. Why is that not very sharp? I guess what we'll do is I'm gonna just tighten it up a little bit like that, and then hit the eraser and just chisel it. Just chisel it to kind of get some. So this isn't particularly glamorous work, folks. There's nothing glamorous about this. This is just grunt work, baby. But it's what real, real animation's about. It's all work. As Richard Williams says in his book, if you don't want to do a bunch of work, why in the world are you doing animation in the first place? Alright, I'm going to just go up and out here all the way. Actually, no. Let's go down 1 level and see how we feel. I'm going to save this, by the way. How we feel about the Maria, I don't think Tom was going. It was Razlad that was going. Tom was just explaining to me what GTG means. I'ma got to go. I'ma got to go. Okay, so, well, of course not. Why would you? Okay, right here. Let's do. How much of this do we want to do? I don't know, but I think this entire sequence will work in reverse. Okay. That does not work quite as well as I hoped. Okay, yeah, because... So I'm going to say on frame 10, I'm really wanting a little bit more of the squinty-eyed look. I think. Well, okay. We could switch back to 7, I suppose. I better insert a dummy frame here. So, yeah, so this is just a matter of working it out. I'm moving this over because if I don't move it over, when I go like this, it's going to push all the other cells down. Okay, now, another thing is the first smile does not work. This right here, it's too early. Too early, so we're going to smack this back in there. He says, "You're a girl." And I think it might be funny if he actually goes a second or so on that expression and then smiles. That would like really tick TNR off, I bet. Oops, that's not what we wanted. Grab all that. Oh, come on. Come on! Sheesh. Okay. Now, ah, shoot. Okay, stop, resequence, and I think probably, well, okay, yeah, resequence. Yes, there's your problem right there. But if you don't resequence, when you come up out of a subscene, it will not necessarily refresh to reflect changes in length of the underlying subscene. So when I stretched this down to 77, when I came back up here, it was still topping out at 60 some. And frankly, if you just grab this and extend it this way, it's just gonna extend the freeze frame on the last frame that it understands. When you click resequence, it basically recalculates how everything's supposed to be flowing. Of course not. Would you? Ah, I see one more problem. When he says you're a girl, yeah, right there. When he says you're a girl is when the switch to sort of the squinty-eyed look should happen. You're a girl. Yeah. So I'm going to squish this down a little bit so I don't get that wacky scrolling going on. So this is the range I'm trying to work with, I think. Yep. Okay, so there's the word girl, so yeah. So that should probably hit right there. And then he gives her this sloppy grin that just really frosts her. So when in doubt, resequence. Yep. Okay. I'm going to let it spin around a couple times because you do get a performance hit when you use sub-X sheets in conjunction with the plastic tool. Because it's got a lot it's got to sort of think through and pre-process. Do you learn from anime techniques? Ajax asks. Yeah, I would say that the show is highly informed by anime techniques. As we saw in the last shot, in terms of little idioms, like this little thing, that little yellow boxes effect, obviously that's stolen directly from anime. As far as the look, that bloom that we see here is pretty much something you see prevalent in lots of anime today. Most of the animation is animated at 8 frames per second, which is, again, typical of anime. on and on and on and on and on it goes. So yeah, I'd say it's probably pretty obvious that there's a strong anime influence in terms of what I'm doing here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, so I don't have to keep changing my, I don't have to keep copying keyframes. I'm going to change my interpolation to constant and just roll my own animation here. So this needs to be in animate mode, not build skeleton mode. Okay, so when he says, why would you? Right about there. Ah, stop. Undo. Undo. I don't want this to be a global key. Kind of ticks me off that it had global key set, because I know I've turned it off like multiple times. You're a girl. Right there. Boom. Oh boy, that smile would really make her mad. Okay, so let's zoom back here and save all. And honestly, probably we can just render this baby and cut it into the show and see what we've got. Now, interestingly, our bloom effect is going to be somewhat diminished. Oh, maybe not. Okay, that's still looking pretty good, actually. So we do have this little smash zoom at the beginning, which might be a little extreme. We'll see. I may wind up getting rid of that effect, and just cropping him as opposed to, well, let's put it this way. If I hit the animate tool to scale, the initial, yeah, see, his position's wrong too. So based on the previous shot, it would be more like this. And then, let's just see what we have here. That would be like that. So I do feel like I kind of went a little overboard here on cropping him. This, he's being scaled up, so we'll say that this is being scaled down just a little bit. And we have the same problem we had before, in that in order to pull off this effect, I have to change my interpolation back to linear. Obnoxious, obnoxious, obnoxious. I certainly admit. I wish there was a way to just have a hotkey to change the interpolation instantly. Maybe there is, but I don't think so. So there's that. And we'll say there's that. Okay, so that gets us in good stead, as the saying goes. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-R and render this baby and cut it into the show and see what we got. So delete that. We want shot number 522. What screen are we on? I need to look over here. Oh yeah, we're on the wrong screen. Let's go over here. And I have to remember to switch back, by the way. 522. There it is. There it is. I'm on the wrong screen still, but that's okay. For the purposes of what I'm doing at the moment, it doesn't matter. There's that. 522. There's that. Pop that in. And as we can see, there's a massive problem. That's interesting. So that might have something to do with like resequencing or something.
Interesting. Interesting.
Oh, I see. Well, that would explain a lot. That would explain a lot. There we go. You silly, silly goose. Dave, Dave, Dave. Okay, so this is probably going to look right. Oh, man. Yeesh. She is not going to appreciate that. Okay, so then he says you're a girl, and she's like, excuse me? Okay, so this will be fun. Let's jump back yonder. So Ajax, you ask, do you learn from anime techniques? What's your what's your purpose in asking that? Or maybe I would say, as opposed to what? Like learning from books or something? What would the alternative to learning from anime techniques be? Learning from TV shows like Family Guy, or, you know, what are the options here? File, save all. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back up 521, but we are definitely going to redraw TNR. So we'll pull that up. Okay, and for this shot, I'm going to keep this on here because I'll be able to, I'm going to turn off the plastic tool mesh. So this is going to be useful because I'll be able to reference the color, you know, for the stuff I'm going to draw right now. But this is what I need to draw. So it's very much a different pose. We could actually do the smash zoom thing again here. In other words, draw her a little bit wider and then immediately push right in. That would look cool. Methinks. So here we go. This is going to be 523, 5, save scene as 523. And we are rocking today, folks. Things have been going well. The shot we just did, it may edit down a bit, but it was almost a 10-second shot. So that means that this shot's going to be fairly short. And then this one's going to be fairly easy because, again, we're repurposing the prior rigging. So I think it's pretty safe to say we're going to hit our 15 seconds without breaking a sweat today. And that's the pace I'm trying to work at. Is I want to have a complete finished animation, 15 seconds worth per day on average. It's a good goal. At that rate, if you factor in the time it takes to write a script, which for me, a 24-minute script is going to take a week. I tend to be a little fast on the writing side. This is not 22, this is 23, you silly goose. Boom, boom. And then basically 2-3 weeks for post-production and the musical score, and there you go. You're able to, if you crank out 15 seconds a day, you're able to generate a finished episode in 4 months. There you go. The cinematography and drawing style. Well, the drawing style, how do I put this? When I started working on animation, which would have been in 2018, obviously I was always a cartoonist, okay? I always drew. But it was really, really hard for me to embrace and learn to draw more in an anime style. So I think I've improved in that regard. My natural proclivity trends toward, you know, what I learned when I was in high school or whatever. So I liked John Buscema, I liked Frank Frazetta. So it was a lot of muscles and a lot of, you know, that kind of thing. And so as far as cinematography goes, though, not at all. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Increasingly, you're probably going to see more and more of the techniques you see in anime showing up in this show because they tend to add a lot of production value for a pretty low production cost. In other words, the really dynamic, exciting, emotional impression from it, even though if you look at what's actually being animated, it's almost nothing, right? Other than just moving the animated background. That's all over the place in anime, and it's perfectly understandable because the time and cost constraints of creating an anime demand that you, you know, find some efficiencies. You know, in my case, I have to find some efficiencies because I'm just one guy doing it. I don't have a team of 40 people, right? So, it's a trade-off. I mean, by any standard, I feel very comfortable, despite the fact that it sounds a little braggadocious, comfortable saying that 15 seconds of complete finished animation on a show per day is really fast. Really fast. If I have to, I can knock out 30. But what I've found is 15 is basically easy. Sometimes you get 20, sometimes you get 10, but 15 is easy. 30 is kind of hard because you just have to maintain focus for a longer day. That's all it is, you know. So anyway, what are we going to do here? Let's say we've already turned off the plastic tool mesh. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go here. We're going to do this the most simplest way, which is we're going to cut this drawing to the clipboard. Come back over here to Tahoma and just go Control V. So now we've got our reference drawing here, and now I can actually make that size adjustment. Let's hit the A key and scale this down, because that way I'll give myself a little bit of room for that smash zoom effect. Alright, so then there's really no time to waste. Let's just go I'm going to turn the smoothing up, by the way. The smoothing helps a bit. In fact, even further, I'm going to redo this line with the smoothing on. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Alright, we'll smack that all the way down there. And then we'll just get the basic proportions of everything kind of blocked in. That's going to be problematic right there, because I need to make sure I'm getting the contour of her chin somewhat right. Now, we've got a little bit of latitude because she's wearing a veil, but I'm not loving this right here. I think that looks better. So we're allowing some of the sort of cloth situation to have its natural effect. Okay, so a little bit of hair indicator there. A little bit of hair indicator there. Zoom in. Let's take this. This really needs to be centered better. Boom. And now the question becomes, are we going to put her eyes on the same layer? For the moment, I'm going to work a little differently than I have been lately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and smack them into the same level and work more the way I do in Krita, where when I reach a point where it becomes important to put it into another level, I'll do so, but not until. So I'm going to crank the hardness up here. Ah, darn. Oh, I see what the problem is. Jeez, no wonder. Dude. Okay, really? Pressure's turned off. You silly, silly goose. There we go. Now we're getting that crisp line. Jeesh. Hitting the M key and the N key so I can... Now, at the end of the day, just for those of you who are starting to panic, the difference between these little softer lines and the sharper lines I'm drawing now is pretty minimal. It's not going to matter much. We could split the difference if you're really worried about it, but that's looking pretty good, actually. And I like that I can kind of put some subtle lines in there. Now, I'm going to... draw those lovely eyes, lovely eyes. She's not so lovely. Isn't she lovely? Isn't she wonderful? Okay, yeah, nothing in the comments at this juncture. We're definitely going to be... Okay, so the reason I'm gonna not... I'm deliberately not thinking ahead. I am not going to put the eyes in their own layer defensively. I am going to wait until there's a reason to do so, but I'm not going to do the color yet. So it's going to be really a bit easier to manage layering requirements as they expand, if indeed they do, if I don't have the color in there yet. So we'll be able to actually just, like right here, we could grab, you know, frankly, I've got to go down 2 levels. If I go down here, grab this, Control C, go back up. Now I should be able to just go Control V and smack all those colors in there. This particular one I can delete. Don't need it because I need to actually modify this outline color for that. So anyway, like I said, we're just kind of flowing with it, but I'm feeling pretty good about what I'm seeing. And frankly, at this point, this guide drawing can just be deleted. And since I already cut and pasted the palette, therefore this can be turned off, this can be turned off, this can probably be turned way down like that, just so I can kind of sort of see what I'm doing. Okay? Most of what I learned, Ajax, about cinematography came from trial and error associated with filmmaking. But I don't think you're probably talking so much about the, you know, how you frame a shot in your camera and that sort of thing. I'm guessing you're probably talking more about the kind of visual effects that you see all the time in anime that add a lot of production value. Again, very economically. Okay, now, couple things that are making me a little uncomfortable. I want to grab this. Gosh, I'm going to say, let's grab that and see if, I'm just going to jerk this around a bit and see if that helps. I don't know. I don't think it makes that much difference. I'm going to leave that one alone. Okay, what as I'm looking at this, I'm trying to figure out what's bugging me. There's something bugging me about this. Yeah, that's better. So this is too long. B key. Still not right. This is where that sketch is kind of helpful. I want to get rid of that. Okay, so I'm going to turn the hardness back down. Get a little more beef. A little more beef on my lines for now. Okay, let me redo that. I'm going to hit the N key. I want to see this at actual size so that what I'm trying to do is, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to draw this the way I would normally draw anything, which is I would actually, as I always like to say, I work from the known to the unknown. This is what I would actually do in most cases. I would draw what I know I'm seeing in my mind and kind of feeling, and then go in and connect the dots. If it adds a little jitter here and there with the line quality, that really doesn't matter much. And this, I think maybe we should reverse this. So that should be actually more like that, and then we can kind of let that. That's probably better. Okay, so now what we're going to do is make a few mods. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take this. Let me think about this for half a second, because we are going to be able to use the plastic tool to a degree. The shift in this shift can be done with the plastic tool. We're going to zoom in with the animate tool. So what do we actually need to animate here? Just her eyes. Just her eyes, actually. Alright, so let's do that. And in this case, again, because I haven't colored it yet, it makes it way easier. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. TNR is getting ticked off here. There ain't no doubt. Okay. And then, do we animate these eyebrows or do we redraw them? Not sure yet. I think both, actually, is what we're going to do. So let's grab this, just clean it off. Grab this. B key. Let's turn the pressure back on. Erase. Boom. Let's clean this up. B key. It'll clean up there. Little fixie there. N key. Boom. Excuse me. Yeah. So she's going to say, excuse me? So we'll give it 3 seconds. So in this case, because we've already chopped the palette in, why are we keeping these levels around? This I'm going to keep around because this I actually think is going to be useful in this shot. When she says, excuse me, I'm kind of thinking I'd like to place this. Well, if we scale it negative 100%, that flips it. Then we can take the rotation tool, kind of smack it around like that, and position tool. Oops, I got the rotation wrong. Well, this is where setting the center would be smart. So if I put the center here, it'd be a little easier to control, wouldn't it? And then I can select all to get it in the basic general vicinity, and then go like that. So maybe I'll use this and maybe I won't. Alright, so now, hello? What the heck did I just do? Plastic tool. Now we've got a problem. Okay, so do you plan on combining 3D too? It can be quite helpful. Yeah, I mean, I'll combine 3D at any time when it becomes appropriate or useful to do so. I'm not combining 3D in the sense of like modeling 3D backgrounds and whatnot, just to do it or just because I can. I mean, it's going to be very much a decision on a case-by-case basis where it makes sense to do so. What's happened more often would be using Blender to do things like shape keys in order to just fix a drawing or change an expression very, very quickly and easily. You know, so the shape keys have been quite useful. Compositing in Blender by using multiple layers of like image sequences mapped to a plane and then placed in 3D space. Parallax moves. Of course, you can do it in Tahoma, but I've done it quite a lot in Blender. So it just, you know, depends on the situation. All right, so what we're going to do now is put these lines in here. And I'm going to turn this color red so that I can see what I'm doing. So these are the whites of her eyes. So by turning it red, we can, and by the way, I'm seeing some noise here. I'm seeing some dirty, icky stuff. So I'm just going to, cool beans. Zoom back out, B key. Yep, we'll just draw those like that. Okay, that wasn't quite perfect. I'm going to hit Control Spacebar and rotate the canvas around. There we go. All right, and then Control Shift Alt R. It's not a native hotkey. It's something I set up. Shift Alt R. And I can't remember. I was thinking it was because I use it in Krita, but the hotkey to reset rotation in Krita is 5, the number 5. So I don't even remember how I came up with that hotkey. All right, so this color should actually be white modulated down to about 85% of white. Okay, and then you've got the fill tool in normal mode. It says boop, 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 and here, same situation, boop and boop. Okay, so now let's go through, and I'm kind of working out from the small to the large. And we probably will have an eye. We probably are going to have like an eye blink, but we'll probably just put that on another layer. Makes everything a little simpler. So let's get this, get that, and boop, flesh, boop. Cool beans. There's the veil, there's the veil. All right, her top is darker. Whoops, we got a leak. I can see it. So B key, I'm just going to take the B key and patch the leak that way. No big. Ah, come on, really? I was on the wrong cell. All right, so fill tool. Okay, we're back in business. Fill that. Fill that. Okay, so my point was that you can't. You're not going to be able to use the plastic tool until you've done your paint. And the reason is because it'll create the mesh for deforming your art around just the lines. Now there's a solution for that if you want to employ it, which is to take a neutral color like you see in some animatics here on YouTube and just lasso select your entire drawing so it fills everything, and then you'll go in and change the colors later. You could do that. So, meaning in freehand mode, you take a neutral color like this and just put a lasso around the whole thing. So now she's actually, as you can see, she's actually colored in. Then you'd be able to use the plastic tool to, you know, do what you got to do without necessarily being locked into coloring it. Now I'm going to hit undo a couple times and get us back to normal. So speaking of lasso mode, in this case, lasso mode meaning freehand. In this case, that's kind of what I need to do for the old eyebrows. Little bit here on these edges. This is pretty much the bane of fill operations, is little tiny areas like this. But happily, you can use the fill tool in freehand mode. So it's looking pretty good. I have to say, guys, I really like, for the first time in quite a while, hey, Amar, for the first time in quite a while, I'm really happy with the way her eyes came out. She's actually looking like I really want her to look, so I'm kind of pretty stoked about that, actually. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm just going around and lassoing areas to clean them up and fill in any little gappy poos that might have been missed. So, all right. So again, one example might be here in the eyelashes. It might be useful to just catch that little thing. It doesn't seem to want to get caught. That's okay. We do want to modulate our efforts based on what you, the audience, are actually going to be able to see. Okay. So now, I'm going to defer on the decision whether I'm actually going to use a sub-act vector level. There we go. Tend to use a vector level. Works quite well. So what's new, Amar? What's going on with you, brother? All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to insert. Sorry, that's not what I meant to do. Grab the header and hit insert. Insert a new column. Make it a vector layer or vector level. Okay, hit the B key, and now you can see I've got auto close, auto group, and auto fill clicked. That means that I can just draw a shape, say like this, and Tahoma is going to very courteously fill that whole area in for me. So I think one of the things, it's come up quite a bit in the chat recently, is that everyone would love to see a filled path tool like that for standard Toonz raster levels. Now you could always convert this vector level to a raster level, but I don't much see the need to. So if I don't go outside the lines, then I can actually just reduce the opacity here on this level. And because I have the scene settings set to enable column color filter and transparency for rendering, that transparency will actually boop show up in the render. I'm sorry, I just accidentally moved the column to the right. So in render mode, you can see there it is. It looks right. Okay, so there's an issue that had come up many times recently, by the way, about that, where this density of color on the outlines would flow right through to the render, and the only way you could really solve that would be to select the shape and reduce the thickness of the lines from here, it's 2.16, to 0. It appears to me, happily, that when you use the effect of allowing the transparency of the column to render through, that problem seems to be disappearing. You see, you got a nice uniform color on your shadow, so great. I'm going to go with it. Same old thing, just a different day. It's a platform that allows you to stream multiple platforms for free. Oh, Insta. I guess that's what Insta is. And of course, working on my personal projects after work. So, cool beans, man. Alright, so now because the only thing that changes here is her eyes, I guess it's debatable whether I probably should put the shadowing over her eyes. It's actually would be smarter to do it maybe on a separate level entirely, but let me get these shadows in here. Oops, that one I didn't quite like. But yeah, I've been quite happy with the filled shape tool as a vector level for the purpose of doing shadows. So if I go outside of the lines like that, I'm going to have to use a post-production effect to clamp it to her character so that it cuts it off here at the edge. You can do that. I often do that. I usually do that. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be more careful and stay within the lines, like so. So it's a judgment call. It depends on the shot. Depends on the situation. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good about this shot, though. So there's that. And now what we want to do is let's invoke the plastic tool. Let's create a mesh. And the problem we're going to have, just so you know, is that if we go into our stage schematic, the shadow is not going to be affected by the plastic. Excuse me. Tom Doing Art asked the question earlier about using the camera in the Z-space instead of just scaling the levels to deal with camera animation. He made a good point. So if you click this icon, then you can see a 3D view in Tahoma, and if you hit Control Spacebar, you can actually toggle around it. You know, just like in these levels, you hit Control Spacebar. I'm sorry. Just like this, Control Spacebar rotates. Well, in the camera or in the 3D view, it basically lets you dial around so you can see what the heck you're doing. One, we're going to be in position mode, and then when I hit Control, I can move this way back. Okay. Now that's not very realistic because she wouldn't be very far back from a sofa that she's sitting on, right? And in this case, the curtains in the far background are married to the same picture as the sofa. Therefore, we're not going to get much benefit by doing this in 3D, is kind of the long and the short of it. So with that said, for this shot, I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to go back to this view, and let's just do a smash zoom. What we'll do is we'll smash zoom the plastic tool level, because since the other levels are parented to the plastic tool mesh, that means that they're going to follow along with whatever I do on this, the mesh level. So A key to scale, and we'll just go like this, and then we're only going to go like 4 frames into it. Boom. And then she's going to be like, excuse me. That's it. Okay, so now we're back to the plastic tool. Let's build a skeleton and take care of that. So as usual, I like to put in a few bones or nodes, whatever you want to call them, around the edges to protect the stuff that we definitely don't want to allow to move. Alright, and then here I'm going to give her just a tiny little zone to sort of represent a neck. Typically I tend to want to put a node somewhere in the middle of the forehead or between the eyes, that type of a thing. And probably in this case, I would guess we're going to want to have a couple nodes along here so that if we need to massage the way the cloth is handled, we'll be able to do so. Okay, so normally you can, hey Ulachek, welcome to the party. Normally you can find out very quickly how well that's working by just going in and just setting some keys, just seeing what happens. Okay, so you can see that actually keep distance is turned off, but you can also see, by the way, what's happening there at the bottom. See the mess at the bottom. Now there's a lot to like about this. There's a lot to like about this. If we go here, and actually use the ability to stretch it like so. The only thing that's bugging me is that back here, I feel like we need a little bit of control across that side of her head. Now that might screw things up too. Oh, not bad. Not bad. And for some stupid reason that I completely couldn't tell you why, adding this bone here fixed the deformation down here. So thank heaven for small favors, right? So let's go turn the opacity of this level back up. And now let's look at what we have. Excuse me. Okay. So this, hit the A key. We don't want to be in scale mode. I'm just going to do all. Is going to be like that and like that. And you know what? I'm going to duplicate this level. Where is that option? Probably on the level menu. Level. Clone. Is there a level clone? Okay. Tell you what, we won't fight it. I'm just going to go Control C, Control V, and just make a copy. So why did that, by the way? Okay, so this is interesting. Okay, yeah, that's there. Cool. So that's there. This side hasn't been affected by the Animate tool yet, so this is all working for us quite well. All right, so now we can add that, and this gets back to the question I think it was Ajax asked about kind of being influenced by anime. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that. The only thing missing is really some lip sync action. Now, we got two ways we can try it. Let's do an experiment. We're dancing with disaster here, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay? So first thing I'm going to do is go and change my preferences back to constant interpolation. Then I'm going to go to my plastic tool, and I'm going to save my work, actually, so that if I need to, I can get back to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add... okay, Tahoma is acting like it's going to crash. Oh, no, it's saving. It's saving. So hang on a second. Just everybody chill out. Everybody just be cool. Just be cool. It's all good. At least I think it's going to all be good. Okay, yeah. Okay, so now we can grab build skeleton mode, and what I want to do is I want to put a node right along here. Like that. And then I'm going to actually put one on each side. Just this, I may regret this, but we'll give it a try. Now the question, sorry about that, we've got a boo-boo. Delete that. Go here. So the question now becomes, is adding these extra bones going to destroy the animation I already did? If it does, then I'm going to rethink my idea here. Let's look at this in rendered mode. Let's let this cache and look really closely. I think we're okay. Okay, so the point was, now we're in animate mode. We can keep distances turned off. We can go we can wiggle this. And maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. So I'm going to put one more key on there. If it doesn't work, we'll just chuck it. We'll just abandon the idea. Okay, the thing I don't like is, first of all, that key doesn't seem to do anything. So this one, I want to have something going on here. So I'm pretty much moving them I'm just moving them a little bit. In the hopes that that will at least give the suggestion of some kind of mouth action under that veil. Let's do a quick render and see what we're getting, because this is definitely a
Bit of a fine-tuning situation.
I like it. Actually, it's pretty subtle, but yeah. It's not great, but it's not horrible. I think what we want to do is hit the insert key, and right here we probably want to go B key, boom, boom, boom. So we'll put a duplicate this, hit the S key, and just move it a little bit. Control C, Control V. Okay, this should probably be stretched all the way to the bottom, and by the same token, I guess number 2 should probably be inserted all the way up before she starts moving her mouth, like so. It does need to be piped through the plastic tool, which means I may have to reposition things. So I'm going to hit F3, and this is column 5. We pipe it through the plastic tool, and indeed we discover that it's kind of sort of in the wrong position, but that's okay, because all we have to do is move it over here, and I think in my case I'm going to prefer a slight rotation as well. Okay, so we do have a little bit of this distortion here at the bottom, so now we're getting into icky territory, because I'm going to have to actually start making the skeleton more complicated. So hopefully that's not going to cause us problems, but we'll give it a crack. Okay. Z. Animate mode. Okay, I think we're in good shape. Okay, so we've got the lip sync in there. The only thing we got to do is this color should probably be reduced. Yeah, something like that. And I think we're done. I think the shots are ready. File, save all. This is shot number 523. We're letting Tahoma save it at the moment. And then we'll cut into the show, like a tensing of the jaw. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the whole idea is to, you know, the whole idea is to make it pretty obvious that she's getting a little worked up, right? So what I wanted to do is check my output settings. 523, everything looks good. Control Shift R. How many frames did we wind up with? Yeah, 24, so it's a 3-second shot. Alright, so we go over here, and again, we're going to hit Browse. On my other screen, I'm going to folder 523, the render subfolder. It's an image sequence. Why is it 85 frames? Well, we'll just ignore that for the moment and see what happens. Yeah, I don't know why that came out to 85 frames. I don't usually have those sorts of glitches in my renders, but you know what? Okay, so there's a couple things I want to fix. Let's go over here. Number one, let's go up. Well, gosh, there is no... Oh, I see what happened. Silly, silly, silly me. Alright, that's okay. That's number one. Number two, the color of her outlines was never lightened. So black ain't working, folks. Okay. And why is it not in rendered mode, but yet it's taking it's not updating in real time? Okay, little annoying, little annoying. Number two here, I need to just do it here in the drawings. But what I'm doing is putting the specular on her eyes. That will be nice. We like that. Okay, so there's that. Specular actually is white, whereas obviously the whites of her eyes are not white. Okay. Overall outlines, as I said, looked a little dark on the render for sure. That's going to be too light. That feels pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and re-render that and smack it into the show and see what happens. So come back here. Okay, so this is what. Oh yeah, and there was one thing I wanted to change on the background too. So here's that. All right. So what I wanted to do was grab the background, hit the A key. Let's scale it up a little bit. I just wasn't buying it. And unfortunately, I inadvertently grabbed the non-uniform scale. Okay, let's do that. And I think I'll kill this so I can see what the heck I'm doing here. And then I want to... I think I want to defocus that even more, actually, because this is a tight close-up. So there's that. Here in the node, or the schematic, I want to take column 1 and give it a blur. Boom. Okay, now that's probably going to be way too much blur. I think about 20 pixels would probably be favorable. Yeah, might be a little strong. Let's go with 15. There we go. Let's try 10. There we go. Let's try 12. There we go. I like 10 better. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go with 10. Boom. Okay, now, what about our vignette? What about our glow? You know, that was kind of pretty. So I think maybe we're missing something here. And the solution is to go into the effects schematic and smack our glow up over top of that. So I think what I'm going to do, though, in this case is yeah, let's just do the body highlight, I think. Light. Come on. Light body highlight. Yes. I think I'm going to skip the full-blown glow for this shot. That looks pretty good, pretty dramatic. I'm liking what I'm seeing. So there it is. Okay, what time is it? 11:26. Live streaming for 2 hours. Okay, that's it. I'm going to kill it. We're going to say at this point I've got 12 seconds done. I'm probably going to do at least one more shot today, but I'm going to go ahead and take me a break. So if that's cool with you guys, I'm going to sign off, and I may be back later today and I may not. So with that,